Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Devex's Summit on the Future of Development Finance. We are going to take a spotlight in this session on some of the innovations that development finance helps to actually fund. Often we have this kind of 30,000-foot conversation about high-level public policy and finance policy. Here, we're going to get really grounded, and we're going to do that with our partners at Citi. The timing of this is pretty great because Citi Social Finance just launched a week ago or so. But they obviously have a long history as a bank and a lender in this space. We're going to hear a little bit about what they're doing, and we're going to focus in on two areas that ought to be fundable, that ought to be bankable and investable in our space, and that's connectivity and rooftop solar. So follow along as we dig into this. I want to welcome our panelists to join us on screen. We've got Kyla, who is the Citi Social Finance Vice President, Anish Thakkar, who's with Greenlight Planet, and Chris Fabian, co-founder at Giga. And we're going to get in with all of you on what you're doing kind of on the ground level as we, at this moment in time, looking at COP, looking at the Sustainable Development Goals 10 years out, connectivity and rooftop solar are so key, and so many other issues that Citi and others are investing in the development finance spectrum. So great to be with all of you. Anish, maybe we could just start with you. Tell us about the challenge and the opportunity when it comes to connecting off-grid homes, getting them access to electricity.
Sure. So about 700 million people in the world live without electricity. And off-grid families spend, on average, about $100 a year on kerosene for light. And kerosene is quite dim, it's dangerous, it's dirty, it emits a lot of carbon. And today, rooftop solar is far more affordable. A rooftop solar home system like our Sun King solar home systems, once installed, provide abundant light for a whole house. They charge appliances, they're safe, and they provide security. And they pay for themselves in typically a year, but the biggest challenge is upfront cost. And so Greenlight makes very high quality solar home systems. We also install and finance them for end users. Because even with just 1 year of purchase financing, we can make rooftop solar home systems affordable to virtually every off-grid family everywhere.
Yeah, maybe Kyla, I can bring you into this because to me, what Anish is talking about is such a great example of why development finance exists. And some of us have probably been in homes or slept in homes that have a kerosene heater and understand viscerally what Anish is talking about. It's smoky. Obviously, it's risky. People die all the time when these kerosene heaters fall over and cause home fires. Solar has gotten so much cheaper, so much easier. It makes so much sense, economic sense, that everybody would get access to it. Yet it has this financing problem. So tell us a bit about what Citi Social Finance, why does Citi Social Finance exist now, and what is the idea? Thinking of an example like Anish's that this kind of finance is needed.
No, thank you so much, Raj. So I'm Kyla Gineitis. I'm part of Citi Social Finance. We recently just relaunched what was Citi Inclusive Finance, previously Citi Microfinance, after 15 years in really the development space as Citi Social Finance just last week. So we're unifying our efforts under this Citi Social Finance team to accelerate work with exactly clients like we're talking about with Greenlight Planet. It's about accelerating social impact through enabling access in business models. So access to everything from finance, as we have our basis, all the way through access to things like affordable telecom, safe, reliable energy, clean water and sanitation, or even access to markets if we're talking about smallholder farmers who maybe need access to somewhere to offload their goods. So really, it's the next kind of stage in development of how we're able to support the space with just enabling access to basic infrastructure and essential goods and services.
Yeah, and these are, as you say, basic infrastructure, things that are eminently financeable. You would think there should be a finance model for somehow it doesn't meet that last mile, or somehow at the global level, the issue hasn't risen to a level of importance where there is some kind of, global backstop to the financing system for this. And maybe that's a good example for Giga. So Chris Fabian, you're the co-founder of Giga and co-lead it now. And you're touching on this issue of connecting schools. Again, it seems obvious that schools ought to be connected to the internet, but there are a lot that aren't. Tell us about what Giga is trying to do and what the opportunity here is. And you're muted, Chris. Sorry.
I knew I was going to be the one to do that. Thanks, Raj. Yeah, that's it. And then never again. There are about half of the world's population that doesn't have access to good connectivity. And specifically within that, about 1.2, 1.5 billion young people who really aren't getting the type of internet access that they need, if any at all. And so just like we heard with solar, I mean, it excludes people from the future that many of us see coming very quickly, and from being part of digital commerce, digital economies, digital healthcare, and other aspects of this digital surface that are so vital for life. And so what we're trying to do at Giga is to really figure out how to create the financing for these maybe 4 million, maybe 3 million schools that don't have connectivity now. And the way that we're trying to kind of make those entry points is by treating schools really as nodes on a connected world, as parts of a network that are just thinly connected or not connected at all right now. And if you can connect the school, you can connect the community around it, which means that suddenly the farmers, the SMEs, the entrepreneurs around the school have access to this digital surface as well. And we're really excited to be working with Citi on the roadshow for a connectivity bond to try to front load some of that, spring load some of that financing. We estimate it's going to cost around $420 billion US to connect every school in the world. But as we'll talk about a little bit in this session, there's some exciting things that we're trying to do to bring that cost down and to really syndicate and synchronize money and make it accessible for the businesses that are doing the connectivity themselves.
So let's get a little bit into the financing problem here and the business model problem you're trying to unlock. So Anish, I believe your organization that you co-founded has now brought electricity to 2.7 million homes, something like that, but mostly focused in East Africa. It's an incredible achievement. So what is standing in your way from scaling from here? Is it that the development finance institutions, like many who are part of this conference today and following this discussion, are not seeing the opportunity and not wanting to invest? Is it a cost of capital issue? Is it just implementation? Or is it that your end customers don't have the money, that $100, they can't pay even on a financing model, a pay-as-you-go model? What's stopping massive, widespread expansion of what you built?
The beauty of the business model that we operate, which is financing rooftop solar home systems for off-grid homes, is that it's a win-win for everyone. For an off-grid home that spends $8, $10, $12 a month to keep a kerosene lantern lit and to charge their phone, they can spend the same $8, $10 a month to pay off a solar asset and to use it every day. So they're paying for it out of the savings from kerosene, and they're enjoying much more light. They're enjoying device power. It's safer. It's cleaner. And after a year of making payments to pay off the asset, they own it and the expenses stop. So it becomes a free product for life. For us, it's the opportunity to bring clean, safe rooftop solar to 700 million homes. It's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. So there's a massive business and sustainable business opportunity to reach that need. And so I think where we are today is that we've proven that this business model works. It works for off-grid homes. It's financeable. We can do it sustainably and profitably. Today, we connect 100,000 new homes a month. We have 2.7 million solar clients, and that's growing at something like 50% year over year. We do this in 5 countries. So but the thing is that the 700 million off-grid population is, 90% are in something like 30 large off-grid markets across sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia. And the key is that how do we take this business model and replicate it, right? We need to build sustainable, profitable, at-scale, bankable solar financing businesses in 30 markets. And to do that, a major component is scalable sources of finance. And so we work with Citibank and other lenders to be able to access the debt necessary for us to extend purchase financing to off-grid families. So really where we see this business today is it's reached the point where the questions of, does solar work for off-grid homes? Is it affordable? Can homes pay for this when financing is extended? Those questions are largely answered. And this is about scaling up a business model that's proven and worked and has worked for 2.7 million off-grid families to date, and scaling it up to the 700 million off-grid people that live across the world.
And you're trying to reach, if I understand right, Anish, you're trying to reach 10 million more households in the next 5 years. But there's obviously a much bigger market than that, as you say. So really what we need, and that's why we have a conference like this, is to think about systemically, how do you get 10 Greenlight planets out there? How do you foster a bigger, more competitive market where lots of people have access to these kinds of services? And I guess, Kyla, looking at you from a financing perspective, because you're looking at lots of opportunities all the time and looking at different bond issuances and equity opportunities. When you look at these, do you see that there's enough deal flow for you, and you kind of have the pick of all these great opportunities to invest in? Or is it that there aren't enough Greenlight planets out there in the world at this point? What's stopping us from hitting the scale we need to hit so quickly?
No, it's such a great question, and I think one of the things that has been repeating that I've heard here is bankable. What does it mean to be bankable, and how do we find bankable opportunities? And it's such a very interesting choice of words of bankable. What does that mean? So I actually looked it up, and Oxford describes it as bankable being as likely to make money for somebody or being reliable. And really, for us, the most important thing when it comes to banking or getting someone more traditional funding from a debt side is really the latter. It's about being reliable. The focus is, has this business model proven that it can be self-sustaining, that we're able to reinvest in the business, that you're able to pay your financing costs? It's really not about, of course, not about any kind of exorbitant profit. It's just about meeting your needs so that we can move forward into kind of a future financeability area and also view the scale up of the business model. So Greenlight Planet they have really evidenced the type of business model that we're looking for. It's a great example of a business model that's really focused on the end client, focused on the interaction with the end client, while kind of molding themselves to fit into more a traditional funding area. It's a really tough nut to crack. It's not something we see perfectly proven kind of every day, but we are seeing more of them, especially in the light of things like fintech as they evolve. We are seeing more and more institutions be able to kind of crack that nut and turn a profit, even a modest profit, in order to support their funders and reinvest in the business themselves, while also continuing to grow and serve the clients who really it's what it's all about.
Yeah, this is really a moment for development finance, right? Because you've got the technology revolution has made things like rooftop solar cheap. You've got lots of technological innovation and connectivity. And then you also have the ability to have low cost transactions all over the world, right? You've got the ability through fintech to reach that end consumer all over and have a direct retail business that could stretch across 30 countries, and you could scale it really fast. So that opportunity is clear. It's an exciting moment. I guess, Chris, for you at Giga, you've got a slightly different challenge because that end customer isn't the schools probably. You're trying to map these millions of schools and get them connected. It's other users in the community that might ultimately be your end customer. So how are you thinking of that business model problem and who pays for this and how you finance it?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I'd go back to this reliability issue. There's no reliable map of connectivity globally. So it's really hard to aggregate demand. It's hard to know where the needs are. And if you're trying to build a business model off of it, you have to sort of do it region by region and sub-region by sub-region. It's kind of a crazy process. And it's also really hard to bank unbanked people. And a lot of the people who aren't connected to the internet also don't have bank accounts and can't prove that they're going to produce revenue in their businesses and so on. So these two issues are sort of supply issues of reliability as we see it. One of the things that Giga's tried to do over the last year is to create this massive map of real-time connectivity. And if you go to projectconnect.world, you can see a map of the world of the 19 countries that we're working in now and the others we're expanding to, with little dots. Each dot is a school, and the dots that are green are schools that are online. The dots that are red are schools that have no connectivity at all. And a school is representative of a community. A school is at the heart of the community. So you have a pretty good idea if there's a whole bunch of schools in one part of a country that are red, there's some big supply gap of connectivity and electricity and other services to that part. And suddenly you can see the problem, you can focus on it, and you can look at how you syndicate and bring financing in the right ways. So it's not any one person who's going to cover that type of cost or any one entity. It's a layer, it's a set of layers, and part of it's free money that you get from sort of existing pots of money. So things like universal service funds, places where taxes have been taken from companies and can be used if they're directed in the right way. Parts of it is the sort of the debt set of money, and that comes from both the IFI and DFI partners, so very low cost debt, and then commercial debt. And then of course there's equity, but who would put equity investments into startups, digital tech startups in places where you can't even see the need? So until you have that baseline of data, and I think the same thing is probably very true for solar as well, but until you have that baseline of data, it's very hard to convince people to put their money in and to put it in the right time cycles. And so that's what's, in our mind, that's what's really stopped things from happening. And I just say, Raj, the other problem is deal flow on the supply side of the SMEs and the tech companies who are going to provide that last mile connectivity. And so a lot of the rest of the work that Giga does is working with governments, with accelerators and with others to make sure that there is a pipeline of projects that can be invested in, so that once there is the money available, it can go quickly into reliable options for investment.
Yeah, so many of these challenges and opportunities tend to be kind of financial engineering problems more than technology problems. I think in the space of connectivity, if you looked at that map, a lot of places that don't have access right now, actually there is internet there. You can, in theory, connect to it. It's just not affordable or it's not reliable. So getting that business model right, unlocking the financing is so key to all of these issues. I guess, Kyla, how do you think about the question of scale? You know, you're trying to make this, when you think about Citi Social Finance and the massive global footprint you have as a bank, you know, how do you think about scaling the opportunity here in places like energy, in places like connectivity and beyond?
I mean, it really comes down to that, to Citi's footprint and our capabilities. We are very focused on ESG, and it's been something that is underlined by the launch of Citi Social Finance last week. And the fact that we are present in 95 countries around the world, and of these 95 countries, 25 are deemed low income or lower middle income by the World Bank, and an additional 26 are deemed upper middle income. So half of Citi's physical footprint is in really emerging economies or countries that have very emerging communities within their economies. So the opportunity is really just getting started. We have 2.2 billion people who lack access to essential services in many of these countries. So scalability is really, it all depends on if we're able to identify the right business models and support the right business models, which is exactly what I think we're all trying to do.
And Anish, as we think about the last couple of minutes here in this session and the people following this along who come from a lot of the development finance institutions, the multilateral development banks, private investors, impact investors, what's your message to them? I mean, if I had to guess, getting from 0 to 2.7 million households will have turned out to have been a lot harder than getting from here to the next 10 million, right? Now that you've built this model, but what do you need the rest of this development finance community to do to help you and others like you get to this scale?
I want to answer that by saying that I think the success of connecting these 2.7 million homes and the many more we'll do in the future is not one that we don't deserve all the praise for these results. It takes a community. We have today 8,000 field sales agents who go door to door and sell and install and service these clients. And there are partners that make this possible. In the same way, there's great enabling policy in the countries that we operate in, countries that acknowledge the need to provide universal energy access to every family in their countries, and they provide enabling policies that make this sector possible. At the same time, we work with development finance institutions and commercial lenders like Citibank. To be able to scale up the provision of purchase financing for these homes. So I think this takes a community, and I think that each actor in our ecosystem plays an absolutely vital role. So I think that as this sector begins to mature, as we get out of the proof building phase and into the scale up phase, I think what's really essential is that when we move from 2.7 million homes to the next 700 million people that are still off the grid, from 5 markets where these solutions are and business models are running to the next 30. I think it's important that each of these actors continues to make the environment for bringing affordable, safe, financed solar as easy as possible, as affordable as possible for every off-grid home everywhere to be able to purchase.
That's a great message, and it's so timely, right? With the climate crisis where it is, this is a real tangible opportunity for DFIs to get more engaged. Chris, what's your thought for the DFIs and others following along in this conversation? What do they need to do or understand differently about connectivity?
So I think connectivity is the underlying issue that unlocks many of the SDGs. We're considering it SDG 0. If you can't connect a community, you can't do health, you can't do education in the way that you need to reach any of these goals. We've just launched this roadshow for a Giga connectivity bond, which is looking for catalytic capital from sovereigns, from highly rated sovereigns, to help us make this push at the beginning. So we'd love to have partners who want to come talk to us about how we build that, how we get the donors in, and of course, if anybody can help us map schools. So we've got a bunch of partners in the technology side and also the development side who are helping to get us past. We just got past the 1 million school mark this week and getting to another 1 million hopefully in the next few months. So really on the financing and on the data science and technology side, we're always happy to collaborate, and we are really keen to have more partners as we go to scale.
Well, Kyla, congratulations on the creation, launch, the new evolution of Citi Social Finance. It's really exciting to hear about it today and to see some examples of what you can do. And thank you, Anish, Thakkar from Greenlight Planet and Chris Fabian at Giga for taking some time to be part of the session. It's been really fascinating, and really wish all of you the best as you go forward with these important initiatives.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Raj.
Thank you.